sir. Well, thank you. It is an incredible honor to be able to do this. I have a resume, but I'm not going to read it. Unless you're hiring, and in which case I'm not looking for a job. So as you can tell, I have one too many. I was speaking with a couple people today that they have a few too many things on their plate, much as I do. I want to share several things. I got to open up see, I may work in IT, but I'm not the most efficient at it because I still have to go through and find things. So what I want to do is I want to share a little bit about what we're doing up in the Spokane area that seems to be working. It seems to be something that we're getting together and we're creating this synergy. You may have heard of that. It's where you have energy that is created between working people and groups and whatever it might be, that people are coming together and utilizing all of the resources and all of what they have available to them to be able to share together and work together. I have a table back here that has what we're using up there. Also, there's what I didn't put on that table is back on some of these other tables. There's a lot of information out there. Some of it's really good. Some of it is on the bottom side of not really helpful or good. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to degrade anybody and talk down, but what I've found to be very useful, I've put on the table and what we're using back in the North Spokane, clear over to Ellensburg area and south, and in the Idaho area, and that's what we found to be very handy. Give me just a minute to open this up so I can kind of follow along with you, as I meant to do this earlier and I didn't do it. So a little bit about myself. I am a pastor and a chaplain. I guest preach at a lot of churches. I help churches go through changes. I do pulpit supply, and I work with other chaplain organizations. I know that might be shocking, but they don't all want to come into NHM. However, we can learn a great deal from these folks. I have a few that are back there. I have Hospice of Spokane and Spokane Hospice. You would think they're the same organization, but they're not. So there's several different chaplaincy organizations as well as here. I'm just telling you what's working for us in Spokane. And it seems to be kind of interesting when you look at the development of chaplaincy, pastoral leadership, pastoral ministry, lay ministry, clear across the board. There's some connecting points that seem to go together really well, that seem to be working for everybody. I want to take and put some of those things together, and I want to share with you as a chaplain, two chaplains or two pastors. I know we've got pastors and chaplains, and we've got some people contemplating between the two, whether they want to be a pastor, whether they want to be a chaplain, whether they want to be a part of a church, whether they want to be a part of a congregation, what church. There's a lot of questions out there. It doesn't take long to read the news or to watch the news and realize that we live in a world of chaos. God did not create chaos for our enjoyment. Chaos is there because we live in a broken world. So, what do? How do we combat this? Well, it kind of starts with a couple different factors. One of them is what we do. And I want to share a little bit about who I am so you know where I'm coming from, particularly before I go any further. Like I say, I'm not going to go through my resume, but I'm kind of from the Pacific Northwest. I went to Nazarene Bible College. Don't throw anything if you're not Nazarene. But I went to George Fox as well. So does that balance it out? Is that okay? All right. So I went to the Evangelical Seminary before it turned to Portland University, I think is what it's called now, or Portland Seminary, whatever it is now. And so Portland Seminary, okay. So I learned a lot of information at the Evangelical Seminary in my master's program. I also took some master's program at Whitworth University, psychology and sociology, mainly for myself to understand a few things. For instance, I was in a care facility and I came to a lady's room and I knocked on her door, and I hadn't seen her in a while, and I said, "How you doing?" She said, "Not well. Why are you here?" I said, "Well, I just came to visit." I said, I've been here before. "Yeah, I know who you are, and I know that you're there, but why did you come right now, right this minute?" "Well, I felt God told me to come and see you." She said, "Really?" She said, "Well, come in." We went in, we sat down, and I'm sitting down there with her, and she sat down in her chair, and she's surrounded by about 4 or 5 pill bottles on this side and some things on this side. And I said, what is troubling you?" She said, "God told you to come see me right now." I said, "Yeah." She said, "See all those pill bottles?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "I was going to eat every single one of those. I'm tired of living." Interactions like that bring you to a point that you realize there's more going on in psychology, sociology, whatever that might be, whatever you want to do it, but there's more going on within a person, and when God tells us to do something, we have to listen. We have to be careful. We have to move quickly, and we have to do exactly what He tells us to do, which is the pre-qualification for what I'm going to say in just a few minutes. There is a point when I wanted to learn a little bit about psychology and sociology. I wanted to put this together to see, okay, what is going on? The things that we would normally say, I've dealt with suicidal tendencies before. I'm not an expert. I'm not, I don't have a PhD in psychology and all that, but I've dealt with it enough that you know some prominent things to say. What do you tell a 97-year-old who wants to commit suicide that there's more to life? She has traveled around the world. She has $1 million in her bank account. What are you going to offer her that is more than, for a young person, those would be something you would do. But this person has been all over the world and has $1 million in her bank account. And she doesn't want to live anymore. That's troubling. That's troubling. So, all that to say that I went to school to learn some things that I felt were valuable to me to go into and help certain individuals to work with them. So I ended up in Spokane, and this is where I'm at now, and it's really kind of interesting. Where I came from was down in, after I interned in the Nazarene denomination, became ordained in the Nazarene denomination, and worked on the coast down in Coos Bay, North Bend area for quite a while, and helped start a church down there. I came up to Spokane, helped start a church, and worked with a couple different facilities and some things going on up there. In all of that, I learned a great deal about community, what was going on within the pastors and the churches, where bigger churches were coming in and the smaller churches were kind of fading away. Pastors having troubled times, having trouble with the congregations, the churches having trouble meeting whatever they needed to do, be it monetary or pastoral work like that. So those things have all come to get me to a point where God said, okay, now I need you to help. Now I need you to encourage. I need you to bring discouragement out of the gutter, and I need you to face it and say, here's what it is. So today's idea and today's message is chaplain to chaplain, healthy habits. Why? Because if we're not healthy, we're not much help. Physically, spiritually, psychology, sociology, all of these things all go together. So we need these healthy habits. We use synergy and collaboration in a lot of what we're doing for a lot of folks around us. I work with a lot of pastors. I work with a lot of chaplains. And I have discovered several things in that. And the primary ingredients that I have found, I put down before you on the papers that you have, those handouts, the 2 pages. Okay, there's going to be a test. You're going to turn them back in, put your name on it, and bring them back up to me. They're for you. Now, these pages, I want you to seriously look at the questions that are on there and answer those questions for you. As we go through and we share and we look at these things, those questions are for you. They're to take a serious contemplative look at who you are and what you're doing. It is one of the biggest key factors I've found when we get together with pastors. When I help pastors, I help churches find pastors. I help people. I run a small group at my house. We have 9 different churches represented at the Bible study at our house. I have churches come to me and say, I want that at our church. And I said, well, that's not how it works. It's not a canned program that you can just do that. It's called what I like to call friendship evangelism, where you go out and you just interact with people, and that's what comes together. And prayer is one of the biggest key factors in that. But what does it require? It requires us to be healthy spiritually. It requires us to be healthy physically, emotionally. All of these pieces all go together. A little bit about where I'm at up there. We cover, they have been so nice to give me a title of district chaplain because I'm kind of going in different areas. I have an office. They built this really interesting living facility up in Spokane, and on the very top of it, they purposely built a church in it, and they built a church office. They hired me to be a pastor there for this church environment. Now, it's kind of interesting, and it's kind of odd in a way, but it's really cool. It's a place that I get to go and be able to preach in this area, and all the things that incurs also within a facility that you're interacting with not only the elderly, but their children, their grandchildren, and a lot of other folks, EMTs, firemen, and a lot of areas. So my wife, Lisa, is a chaplain. Jim is a chaplain up there with me. He works for hospice. Jerry works as a pretty good guy. He's got a lot of businesses, and he goes around. He's working with a lot of the areas. Dwayne and Julian have an interesting chaplaincy that they work with the elderly that are homeless and under the bridge. Blessings Under the Bridge. Very unique, but it adds something to our group that is far beyond something that we comprehend. And they're people that need the Lord, and they need encouragement. We have Gary and Dot, who are up north, and we have Ken Benjamin, who spends half of his time overseas and half of his time in Colville. And then Matt is in Ellensburg, Leah is in Cheney. They have very distinct opportunities as well to meet with a lot of chaplains organizations as they're up there. That is the group that is up there in Spokane area, and that is who we are up there. Let me start with the ideas of what we're doing. I'm a preacher, so I've got to start with Scripture. That's just where we're going to go. So as this healthy habit starts out, I wanted to start out with the beginning part of what we have for NHM. So the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. What was said right before that? It's extremely important. It's very important. Jesus went through all the towns and villages teaching. I'm in Matthew 9:35 right now. It's at the top of that. He went through all the villages, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless. Very interesting terminology there. Harassed and helpless. Like sheep without a shepherd. I can't tell you how many times I go through and I talk to pastors about this. A lot of conversation. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plenty, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field." That's you. That's us. That part of the scripture is so important because there is a lot of work to be done, and there are not a lot of workers out there in Jesus' time and now. I talk to a lot of churches about chaplains. To find chaplains, it's hard to find them. Once again, I've discovered some of the reasons for this. I've discovered some of the pieces behind it of what's going on. Right before this passage, if you'll think about this, Jesus had some training, and there's some training that needs to be going on. I so much appreciate it, and I am so honored to be a part of this, to be a part of not only the group, but that John has asked me to come and speak. There's this basic piece that Jesus did. He calls his disciples. He goes up on a mountain. We know Sermon on the Mount. And he goes and he says several things. Blessed is, if you look at that, oh, the bliss of, oh, the joy of. Well, some of those things don't seem like joy, do they? But they were putting things together. His basic tenets of that were putting things together to say, we need these things. These 12 disciples, you folks, now there's other people there too, but he's talking to the disciples, and he says, this is what you need to do. Why? Why did you tell them that? Why did he give them the basic tenets of the Beatitudes? Why did you do that at the very beginning? And then he went and showed them what needed to be done. And then he comes down to this and he says, the harvest is plenty and the workers are few. And then what does he do? He sends them out 2 by 2. I'm going to talk about accountability too. Accountability is important. It's crucial. So he goes and he does this. Well, he gives them the Beatitudes and he tells them, oh, the bliss of, meek, mild. The basic tenets of that are humble, to be humble. Why is he telling them to be humble? Jesus is a rock star. Jesus is going around, he is healing people, he's casting out demons, he's doing incredible things, and these guys are going, yeah, we're part of this guy. No, he's saying, you need to come down to a humble level. You need to bring it down. Here's the basic pieces. The Beatitudes are what you need to remember, and this is how you work them out. This is what you do. And what are we doing? We're going into the harvest field. So we have to be humble in who we are and what we're doing. Now, in that, how do we work through those things? Which is where I want to head. So the very first thing that we're going to look at is the condition of the worker. That's you. The condition of the worker is important. The physical aspects. I put on there the last doctor checkup you had. Is that important? Yes. This is yes, and it should be yes. If you are not healthy, you're going to have a difficult time. Now, I'm not a doctor. However, I do know that you need to have a doctor's checkup about once a year, at least. Some of us more. But you need to go and do it. Men, I'm talking to you particularly. I know this because my wife tells me. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be healthy. So, you want to make sure that you are physically up to what you need to do. If there's anything going on, find it early. Discover it early. It's easier to deal with. Trust me, I deal with this a lot. I deal with pastors. I deal with chaplains. I deal with family members. My dad was on the heart transplant list for years and years. A miracle occurred and he doesn't need a heart anymore. The doctors can't figure it out. I'm okay with it, whatever. But he was on it for about 15 to 18, somewhere between 15 to 18 years, depending on how you do that. It's important. Physical pieces, I want you to think about this. When is the last time you took a vacation? You don't have to answer me. Write it down. When's the last time you had a vacation? That's important. It's really important. If you don't get away and just get away, you're going to burn out. You're going to fall flat on your face. How do I know this? I've done it. It's not fun. And it's kind of silly to watch people pick you up off the ground. Disabilities, management. What do I mean? If you have physical disabilities, mental disabilities, whatever they are, how do you manage them? What do you do with them? I have a physical disability. I retired from the military with a physical disability. I have split the muscle in my back lengthwise, and the discs in between them are disintegrating, and they have been really messed up. I manage that. I maintain it. It requires some manipulative force, and it requires a lot of me being extremely careful. My kids are really good at keeping me to be careful. That's good. Dad, that's too heavy. Don't do that. Bend correctly. Those are good. Those are management pieces. But we know our own limitations. We know our own disabilities, whatever it might be, whatever that is. Psychologically, there could be something as well. I'm not here to say that you should, you do, or you will, but depression is one of the biggest key factors of things at this point, especially going back to vacation, going back to a hobby. You'll notice the books that I have in the back on all the things there. I have a couple books on whittling. I love to work with wood. That's why I love going to Don and Bev's all the time and staying with them, because he did all kinds of cool stuff. That was just fun to watch. I didn't have anywhere near his talent, but it's fun to do. But if you don't have something like that, depression is a beast, and it will eat you up. It will eat you for lunch. Don't let it get ahead. If you need to go see a psychologist, there's nothing wrong with that. If you need to go see a counselor, there's nothing wrong with that either. Just maintain. Be careful. Once again, accountability. Jesus sent them out 2 by 2. There's a reason. He gave instructions, he gave us what to do, and he told us how to do it. Accountability is one of those things that can help you in that. Sicknesses. This is an odd one. So obviously we have a lot of handouts and things that we have. If you're sick, don't go visit people. My wife runs a hair salon in the facility that we're at. People come to get their hair done. You know why? Because they're sick. They don't want to go to work. They come in, I might as well go get my hair done. It's like, what are you doing? Stop it. If you're sick, don't go visit people. That's common, and that's good. But if you think you're sick, if you have, it seems like sinuses, think about it before you go see someone who could be vulnerable. The health systems that we all have sometimes get a little depleted, and if we go see someone who is sick and we're carrying a germ of some sort, we're going to send them down quick. That's not good. The opposite side of that, if you're healthy and you go visit someone and they're sick, don't go see someone else until you do something. I brought this with me. Hand sanitizers are wonderful, but they dry your skin something terrible. So Avon came out with these, I think there's 2 or 3 flavors that they have, and they are a moisturizer hand sanitizer. Now somebody's thinking, I like this. So a moisturizer with a hand sanitizer, however you want to do it, but make sure you have some type of hand sanitizer wherever you go. Keep it in your pocket, keep it in your car, your purse, whatever. For you guys that are looking at me like, what do you mean purse? Whatever. So, you have to take care of yourself, but you have to take care of others. Don't transfer stuff in. The national park, they have the signs, pack it in, pack it out, whatever you have. Apparently they didn't listen when, on Mount Everest, but, there's all these things that you can take in as well as bring out. So you want to be careful. That's why they have those little foamy things in the hospitals. I do a tremendous amount of hospital visitation. I think my hands are like raw when I come out of those places. But anyway, those are things that you need to really look at. What are you doing for yourself? Vitamins, probiotics, those are a big deal. Keep yourself healthy. Once again, if you're not healthy, it's hard to help someone else. It's hard to serve if you're not healthy. Drink lots of fluids. Obviously, those are things that we need to do. Eating correctly, those are some of the big deals. You hear about it all the time. You don't have to do something really fancy. You just need to eat right. It's simple to do. Fruits, vegetables, things that are healthy. You know enough about that. You're wise folks. You're chaplains, pastors. You know that. But it's good to hear that every once in a while back there. One of the things that I wanted to touch base on is a lot of places will ask you to do a tuberculosis test, a TB test. That's not a bad thing. It doesn't hurt. They put a little needle here and they inject it and they see if you're going to react to it. It doesn't do much, but a lot of places will do that to make sure that you're not a tuberculosis carrier, because if you go back in time and you think about what tuberculosis centers that we had, it was a pretty serious, and anybody who's already got a deficient immune system is just going to have some terrible time with that, so they're going to make sure. So that could be something you see in that. Some people freak out. They go, what do you mean tuberculosis? I don't want to do. Well, it's okay. Especially if they offer to do it, great. Make sure that they're qualified to do it, and a nurse or nurse practitioner or someone at the facility, make sure they're okay to do that. Those are things we've run into, things that we've found, and it's not a scary thing. It's actually quite good to know. And as well that you're not a tuberculosis carrier. Are you a faithful member of the fellowship of the body of believers? Notice I didn't say a particular church or denomination. Body of believers. Are you there as a part of the body of believers? Whatever that looks like. It's important that we have spiritual guidance and feed from something. We need to be fed as well. Pastors I talk to all the time, I ask them, where are you being fed? Where do you get fed from? How do you do that? Well, it's kind of one of those areas where they go, well, I don't really know. Well, you have to be fed. You have to. It's part of one of the priorities within the NHM things is to be a part, is that correct? To be a part of a church still. So that is one of the things that we need to make sure that we're a part of the group of the fellowship of the body of believers. Don't forsake it. Make sure you're connected in something. I put down there as a question, the last Bible study you attended. Now, I've talked to a lot of guys and they say, we are part of, I can't tell you how many times I've heard this. We are part of a football Bible study. We are part of a baseball Bible study. We're part of a fishing Bible study. We're part of okay. I'm not here to judge. However, a Bible study is a Bible study. A Bible study is something where you're digging into Scripture and you're asking questions. You're looking through it and you're trying to determine, what was God trying to tell me? What was Jesus saying? What was his disciples doing? What was going on with these people? Questions. Questions, maybe not answers, but questions. Questions about the Bible. So I put that one in there. That's for you. Like I said, this is for you to do that because this is healthy habits. I want to make sure that you're as healthy as you can possibly be. Now, you may not be comfortable with what I'm saying. I was going to say I don't care, but I do care. I want you to be healthy. You're part of the body of this fellowship of the body of believers. You're a chaplain. You're a pastor. You're people who are going out and you're working in community. You need to be healthy, but that means spiritually healthy. You've got to be focused on God. He's our basic foundation. I stand on that principle. I get hit with that a few times from people who do not believe in the Bible. That's fine if they don't. I do, and it's what I stand on, and I'm going to stand on it. And I will always stand on it, and I'll stand on it forever. That's all I'm going to do. So make sure that you're tied in to a body of believers. Now, the Bible study and the fellowship of the body of believers could be the same thing. It might be for you. I know a lot of people who are, because of the challenges that they have, because of the physical disabilities, because of certain things that are part of that. I put on there, what was the last scripture passage you read? That's for you. If I ask myself, what was the last scripture passage that I read, that I studied, that I looked at? That's something that I want to know. I want to be able to write that down, because if I don't have an answer for that, well, wait a minute. Did I read? Did I study? What have I done? And that's a question that I ask out to a lot of people. It's important. It's extremely important. Important for the vitality of our spiritual well-being. The next question I ask, what are your spiritual gifts? You should know what your spiritual gifts are. If you're a chaplain and you're good at it, I'll bet that's one of your gifts. Now, you go through spiritual gifts and you look at that and you tie those together and you take a spiritual gifts test or you do something in that, look and see what you have. There's lots of them out there. See what your spiritual gifts are and hone in on those, because you can work those to your advantage. You can help others to discover their spiritual gifts and to see what they have. Now, there's lots of controversy between those, and there's some there, but at least know what they are. Know what your skills are. Know what those are about. Those are practical things that you can put together. How is your prayer life? You know that answer. I can't tell you. I can't sit here and look at everybody and say, how is your prayer life? I don't know. But you do. And you can make a notation of that. The big things are, who are you praying for and who's praying for you? Once again, going back to accountability, if you're praying for somebody, obviously you're directing things in quite a way that you're able to say, oh, I have this answered prayer. Write them down. Answered prayers are wonderful, because you can go back and you can say, God has been faithful in all of these things. Well, yeah, he's been faithful, but you have evidence of it, and you can say, wow, somebody says, well, what good does prayer do? See? This is what prayer's done. Well, who's praying for you? NHM is. I love it. That's awesome. The rest of the chaplains are. The prayer letter that goes around, Gene does a wonderful job of sending that out and giving us all the information and who to pray for and who needs prayer. That's awesome. Pray for local folks too, the folks that are local on what we're doing or where we're focused. Hey, John, I'm not watching time at all, so when we need to break, you tell me to do something like that. Or at least let me know so I can duck. So NHM is really good for that. The last part of this little section here, I would say, is as a checkup for a physical, going to a doctor and seeing what you have for a checkup, do a spiritual checkup. When was your last spiritual checkup? What are my gifts? Who am I praying for? Who is praying for me? Are there certain needs I need in a spiritual realm? Am I doing the right thing? Am I in the areas? I'll go into a little bit further detail of where we're at a little bit later. Okay, psychological. I put on there, don't skip this. Let's talk. Seriously. I'm serious. I've seen a lot of pastors, chaplains, and some people who are not pastors and chaplains slide down a slope. I'll give you a little example. Don't tweet this. So I was at a church, and the lead pastor had a lot going on, had a tremendous amount of information he was trying to process and stuff. Bigger church, guys coming through. I was helping the pastor out, trying to go through some changes they were doing. And a guy comes through the door. And the pastor says, hi, how you doing? There's several people coming through, and this guy comes through and he says, hi, how you doing? And he says, well, not good. I think I want to end it all. Pastor said, that's nice. Come on in. Yeah, he and I had a little talk. Well, the pastor and I had a little talk after that, but the guy and I had a little talk with the counselor thereafter. You know, we went straight up to an office and did that. And then I talked with the pastor afterwards, and I said, how did you miss that? Come on, man, you got to pay attention. Spiritual well-being, psychological well-being, physical well-being, it's extremely important. If you can miss a cue like that as a senior pastor because you're just now, senior pastors have a lot going on. They got a lot on their plate. I understand that. But that's a key element to miss. And thankfully God had me there at that point to help out, which is probably why he had me there, because everything else didn't go well. So I was there, but that did. So maybe that's the reason I was there. I have no idea. But psychological, please don't skip that. If we're not psychologically healthy, we're going to have a problem. You'll notice back on the table back there, I've got the 2 books on whittling. Psychologically, things are helpful. Go take a sauna, go work out, go run, do things. Get yourself away from whatever needs to be done, and perhaps if you know a counselor who's a really good guy, who's a friend or something, someone you trust that you can go to with a good Christian background. Once again, accountability is a key element. If Jesus is sending them out 2 by 2, you've got that whole thing. One falls down, one has a problem. The other one can say, oh, hey, what's going on here? Or help them back up, or say, you don't look well today. You okay? These are questions that you can get. Psychologically, physically, all of these things can play well together. And they really need to be looked at. Relational. I didn't put these in a particular order, but they kind of all work together. The relational issue is, how are all these things affecting, and how is this relational issue going? How is it working for you? What is going well? What is going wrong? How is your relationship with God? These are questions that I've asked over time that we put together, that the group of us that meet up in Spokane, these are questions we ask each other. They're questions we ask pastors when we meet with pastors. I have 2 or 3 people that go to pastors' meetings with me and chaplain meetings of other organizations and churches. We actually go and we'll meet with a couple churches and we'll say, how is your relationship with your pastor, with your board, with God, with your wife, with your children? How are those relationships? Sometimes they can give you a clue what's going on. They really can. I'm not here to be a judge. I'm not here to say anything. I'm just here to tell you what I've seen, what I've discovered. And those are big telltales. They will let you know. So if you have them down there, please don't lose this piece of paper. Copy it. Do whatever you want with it. You have my permission to publicate, wherever you want to do, and you can do the same thing anywhere else. So just don't use your copy, because then if you have personal notes on there, then you may not want to put that out there. So these relational pieces, especially if you put something down about your spouse, I don't like her this week or something, that's something you probably need to talk to your spouse about. Neighbor, that's a big key. Who's your neighbor? That's in the Bible, remember that? The neighbors that we have, sometimes who we are and how we interact with others, and who we are in the grocery store or in the bookstore or at the coffee shop. Speaking of coffee, where's my coffee? There it is. These are key elements that people pick up on. Oh, you're from that church, or you're from that organization, or you're that chaplain. Got a name badge. You ever walk through some place and realize that, well, maybe I shouldn't have done that, and you go, oh, rats. Whoops. Yeah, better rethink that one. So nobody else has ever done that? Just me, right? So yeah, don't put a bumper sticker on your car if you're going to cut people off at the interchange. Just saying. So, those are things that if we're not healthy, we're going to make some silly decisions. We may say or do things that, they're not going to go well with our children, with our spouse. Go back to God. First relationship. God, spouse, friend, neighbor, whatever that coworker, whoever that is, once again, there's accountability. Who's your accountability? Where's your accountability? Make sure you have that. NHM could be NHM, could be another chaplain, could be, I keep myself, one of our chaplains, Jim Acey. His last name's a little deceiving. You kind of have to read it through and kind of understand that. But he is a retired counselor for a school district. He's my personal accountability partner, as well as a chaplain and a really good friend. He has the authority to tell me to shut up. Or you really need to bring that back, dial it back. He and I have that relationship. That's accountability. Those are the things that we really need to look at. Jim and I keep each other on track, and we know when each other is sick. We know because we're godly brothers, and we know what's going on. We know when each other are sick or unhealthy or not feeling well or disgruntled for some reason, or just, I've just had it. I'm tired. I need to go out and whittle wood for a little while or something. All those factors are really key. The healthy habits that we keep, the healthy habits that we interact with, we need to make sure that we're on track and we're on top of, to make sure that we don't go down a path. I've seen a lot of pastors just really make some devastating mistakes because they didn't have accountability or something. And I've seen chaplains do the same thing. Those are the pieces that we need to look at.
All right, are you bored yet? No. Okay. Good information? Yes. Excellent. I have discovered over time that we are connected in many ways, spiritually and physically, that there is so much information that we have to try to get to and from each other. Try to do that. I think I took my computer back. I say I might be over IT, but I still make mistakes when I need to. Don't tell my boss. Okay, a couple clarifications while we were on break. I thought about it and had some folks come up. Sickness, don't go visit people when you're sick. What does that mean? If you have something that is, now there's a difference between, I'm not a doctor, but there's a difference between bacteria and viral. So, and you know the differences between there. You can look about, you can Google just about anything. But there's a difference between that, and if you have something that is wrong with you, but more so is if you feel like you're not well, you're hacking up a lung, something's going on. You want to be cautious of going in to see someone so you don't affect their immune system or bring it out. Now, if you're going through cancer treatments or something else, does that mean sick? Well, it can, but are you susceptible? Because if you go in and somebody's got something that's wrong with them, you read the door plaques as you go in, and there's certainly the different codes that you go in. Make sure that where you're going into, you're not going to be risking your own health to something if your immune system is not well. It's better to be cautious and just leave a card and say, I'd like to see you, but I'm not really sure if I'm well enough to do that right now. So take cards with you and leave a card so they know you're there, or that nurses can get through to some things. The question came up about the psychological aspect and the physical aspect, or the spiritual aspect. I learned enough in seminary and in my graduate programs that I attended. I learned enough to make myself dangerous. and that's the best I can put it there. So I've learned a lot that The psychological aspect and the spiritual aspect, how do those play together? Well, there's hundreds of books. There's tons of books out there that talk about the difference, how to split them out, how to join them together, what they mean in sociological aspects and in cultural aspects and all of these. It's difficult to define them and slice them up and try to put them back together. However, there's something psychological that, if we look at it on a basic aspect, and what I'm going by is, I meet with a tremendous amount of pastors and chaplains. Like I said, I love pastors and chaplains because I like to help them succeed. I like to help them be where they need to be so they can serve others. That work field out there is not getting any smaller, and the workers are not growing exponentially at all. So anyone who's in the work field, and anyone who's in the harvest field, and any of the workers that are out there doing stuff, I want to make sure that they're the best that they can be, the healthiest, the best psychologically, physically, emotionally, and things like that. So that if you look at it within the aspect, there is, who was telling me about the sunlight? How much sunlight was part of that. There is and I can't remember the name of the effect, but there's a seasonal affective disorder. And what that involves is serotonin reuptake. I sound pretty good, don't I? So, all that to say, there are things that hit us. There are things that can come to. We have shorter days in the wintertime. Thankfully, we don't live in Alaska. Those of you who did, my hat's off to you, because that's quite something. I'm in Alaska to do that. I've been at the North Pole and I've been at the South Pole. And I've seen the seasons change down there in Nebraska. Lack of sunshine. Oh, it affects you something terrible. It's amazing. Now, what does that mean? Well, it's something we have to pay attention to. It's something we really have to pay attention to. Here in Oregon, it never rains, right? I know better than that because I was on the coast for a while in torrential downpours. So,
you were at the coast.
I was, yeah. Yeah, I wasn't sure if the waves were coming to me at the house or if I was, So those things affect us. The rain, where I'm up at the snow, of course, I like the snow, so that's okay. But the lack of sunshine is something that we have to pay attention to. Psychologically, is that emotional? Well, it plays into our emotions. Physical, does it play into physical? Yeah, I want to go drink a cup of hot chocolate and go hibernate for a while. It's something going down. So yeah, so I want to take advantage of it. But if we have things that we are going to do, if we need to take a look at aspects of what it is that the sunshine does for us, well, how do we look at that with our own emotion, with our own physics of ourselves, with our own emotional sense of who we are, and do we get into, and I'm going to say the D word, that depression area? It happens. It does. We live in a cold, wet environment here in this area. We live in an area where it's shorter days, and so that lack of sunshine, the encouragement of rain to make the flowers grow, or whatever the rain eventually does while it's coming down.
Daylight savings.
Yeah, fills up the ocean, I guess. So those are things that we have to take into consideration for us to be healthy. Now, turn that around to the people you visit. If you're going to see somebody and they're going, well, I'm depressed and life is over. Well, is it something emotional, psychological? Is it something that they need? Is it one of those seasonal affective disorder issues? Is it something that is affecting? Is it something? So there's spectrum lights that you can get. There's medication that that folks can take. Is it important for us? Yes, it's important for us because it's something we need to be aware of. But we also need to be aware that if it affects us, guess what? It affects other people. So our health and their health, God designed us, I don't know if you figured this out, but we're all human beings. We're kind of the same in some aspects, some differences. But we all have, and we're all affected by different things. So if we can help ourselves, we might be able to help other folks. What's worked for us may not work for someone else, but at least it gives them information. It gives them something to go on. Oh, I didn't know that. I wasn't aware of seasonal affective disorder. I knew it was out there, I just didn't pay attention to it. But it's come up a lot in the last probably 2 or 3 years. Now, whether that means that it's just more so out there in the Google world, I guess, if you Google everything. Some of those things are important. So those are pieces that we need to think of and to interact with, not only for ourselves, but to help others. And when we meet together, it's kind of difficult. This is kind of a new realm for us, and I have to hand it to John. Kudos to you for putting this together and to bring us all together for these. It is helpful for us all to get together to share what's going on, not only chaplain-wise, but relational-wise. As far as what is, I don't know if you have the same thing down here, but we are noticing a change in the community of people, of the culture. I know it's everywhere. We have a culture of hate and discontent. We're split as a nation, as a city, as a county, as a government. Split across the nation. It's issues. We have problems. Now, I don't know that it's healthy to go into those issues, because personally, I don't know if we can really solve them. We just have to pray for those and just do that. And so it may not be the best idea to entertain some of those conversations. However, it is good to understand what that is. And during some of the winter time, where there's shorter days, more rain, colder, can't get outside, it's good to get the oxygen in your lungs. It's good to go for a walk. It's good to have the habits that are healthy. Whatever you do, remember I had the question on there, when was your last vacation? When was your last physical? Those things play well together. Those things are important because if we're not looking out for what's going on physically to us, emotionally, we can start to drain a little bit. If we haven't had a vacation in a while, if we haven't done something fun, if we haven't been out with our spouse dancing or our friends and just go out fishing or hunting or whittling or whatever you want to do, woodwork, metalwork, whatever you do, if you paint, whatever that is, get out, get some oxygen, get some traveling, even if it's for a short distance. Do something you enjoy. Do something that gets you out and about. Get the legs exercising, the arms, the breathing. All of these things are important. They keep you healthy. God designed us that way. We're supposed to be that way. Now, in the middle, I was stationed in New York and New Jersey for too many years, actually. So I was on this was before Sandy Hook, but I was at Sandy Hook, New Jersey, and I was looking off into, I did tower work, so I was on the tower, and I'm looking across into the tower, the end of the spit, looking off into New York. I can see the skyline of New York City. It actually looks like the city in the water. Now we'll go there. Anyway, so I'm watching the city, and it's really early in the morning. The sun's just coming up. And I thought, you know, that's not a picture I really see. And I didn't have a camera at the time. And I thought, oh, that's kind of neat. And as the minutes progressed, I watched this gray cloud form over New York City, and it turned a darker gray, and then it turned black, and then it covered the entire city, and the city was gone. I've never seen anything like that before. That was pretty amazing. And then it kind of lifted up a little bit, and there's this gray tint down here, and it just kind of shaded into a black above it. Do you think that affects us? Yeah. Now, I'm not an environmentalist. I'm not here to, say carbon, carbon footprint and all that. However, those are things we need to consider. They're things we need to do. Where are you going for a walk? If it's in New York City in the morning time, lifestyle comes in, I would rethink that. I might want to do something else. So those are things we need to pay attention to and be careful of. So full light spectrums, to be able to see that, get out in a good environment and get some oxygen, get a walk, get some rest more than anything else. Rest. I don't know if you've read the beginning of the Bible, but God did this rest thing. We're supposed to do that. It's kind of a commandment. So, make sure that you're getting rest in something, in some way. Now, that doesn't mean just physically. It means mentally as well. Shut down. Give yourself time and give yourself space to go back. Accountability. Once again, if you don't have an accountability partner, if you don't have somebody who's keeping you accountable for those things, get one. Find someone. There's a whole way to do that, but there are healthy ways to do that, and you want to make sure it's a healthy relationship that you do. We train in Spokane in different ways that I have full use of the facility that's up there, which is kind of neat. And I can train chaplains in the facility that we're at. Now, not all of them are for NHM. Some of them are for other organizations, hospice, and some churches that are up there. So I have full use of the facility to be able to train chaplains in calling, in services. We do marriages and funerals, and we've had one baptism up there, or a big baptism, a few different ones. But there's different things that we do. So I also have the training room that's available. Now, in the training room, it's set up kind of similar to this, only we don't have a cool basketball. However, if you're ever going to get rid of it, I'm thinking this could be fun, especially in church. I'm thinking that could be kind of neat. There are some folks who are really gifted and trained in some areas that we need to know. We've had speakers come in who are lawyers, who are elder lawyers. What to look for within elder society. What it means to have a living will or a trust or a living trust. Or some of those things are important, and a lot of those folks have questions. Hey, you're a chaplain. What do I do when I die? Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, the work is done at that point. So there's a lot of preliminary things that people want to know. So we have a couple of lawyers who are friends of some folks that we have up there, and we have some lawyers come in. We have nurses come in and tell us what to look for if we see something, if we identify with something. These are all important aspects to have. It helps with the all-around health. It also takes some onus off of us so we know what at least a warning sign is to say, something doesn't look right. Something's kind of out of whack. Something doesn't look good. All that to lead into the condition of the work. This is why and where you serve. Where you're at. Where God has called you to be. I have to tell you, I meet and I can't tell you how many people I've talked to within churches who talk about their pastor. They say, our pastor is terrible. Believe it or not, I've heard that a lot. I've also, on the other hand, I have had a pastor come and tell me that his congregation didn't want him to preach from the Bible anymore. I was amazed. This actually happened in Oregon. And he said, I don't know what to do with that. And I said, I don't know what to do with that either. You're a church. I on earth would they call you as a pastor if they don't want you to preach? Well, they said I'm getting, there's too much. They're being convicted too much. Are you kidding? Really? Wait, did I realize that maybe the Holy Spirit knocking on the door going, hello? And so I prayed with him for a week. And he said, this is the message that God's telling me to preach. It was it was an Old Testament passage, and that was it. And he said, what should I do? I said, you got to preach it. God's telling you to preach it. I said, yeah, that's what I'm feeling to do. But he said, I'm going to be looking for a job.
Well,
And I said, I don't know what to tell you on that. I said, this is the first time that I'd ever experienced a pastor who his board is going to fire him for preaching out of the gospel. That to me, just, I was like, what is going on? And sure enough, he did. He preached the word and they fired him.
very nice.
Wow.
There's an odd thing. And the enemy is so busy doing things amongst Washington, D.C., Washington State, Oregon. There's all kinds of things that the enemy's busy doing. Destroying pastors, chaplains, families, churches, everything. We are supposed to be following God's direction wholeheartedly. We're supposed to be standing firm on Scripture. What's the last passage of Scripture that you read? What did you read last? What did you study last? Is it important? Yeah, it's really important. It's really important. Your devotional time to God's Word is above everything else. Personally, that's what I would say. I will stand firm on that. God's interaction with you and your interaction with God is highly important. The number one thing, the biggest discovery that I've found with pastors and chaplains is calling. So, calling is the first thing that I put on here. Now, I'm not saying you're not called. I'm not questioning your calling. However, calling is the biggest piece that I've found to be a problem.
Are we supposed to have a separate sheet?
Yes.
Everybody reunion.
We're going to keep you in the dark. Is that okay?
Anybody else didn't get a second sheet? Oh, we got it.
I'm off the cuff here. I'm just going to. You can catch up with me. Or I can catch up with you. I'll tell you a story while I'm doing that. I got called to a church. They wanted me to be their pastor. Actually, I've done this a few times. I pulpit fill for several churches, different denominations. And every once in a while they come up and they say, hey, you preach scripture. Okay. What did you expect me to preach? So they're hungry. It's amazing how many churches are hungry for the word. Did you hear what I said? Yeah. I'm amazed. They're hungry. They're hungry for scripture. Some of them are hungry for hymns rather than modern music. That's a battle in itself. I'm not going to go there. And that's been going on for quite a while. So I've been called to several different churches, and one of the key factors that I talk about, and one place in particular that they called me, they had tremendous amounts of questions. And the board came up to me and they sat me down at the front and had a big long table. And they said, okay, are you nervous? Sure. Why would I be nervous? Well, we're going to grill you. Okay, go for it. They were asking me tons of questions. Some of them appropriate, some of them okay. Some of them, they didn't realize they were actually illegal, but I let them know that they were illegal. You can't ask some questions anymore. But I could go through that. And they said, so, after an hour of this, they said, so do you want to be a pastor? That's an odd question. Well, let me ask you this. None of you asked me the most important question of all. Was I called to be a pastor? Was I called here to pastor? And they all sat back and said, oh. That should have been the first questions I emailed. Those are the first questions. Unfortunately, that's happened more than I can count. In fact, I have yet to stand before a board who has had their first question to say, am I called? I have yet to stand before a board to ask me that question. It should be the first thing that we think of in our minds. Are we called to be a chaplain, to be a pastor, to be ministry service, to whatever that is? Whatever that focus is, that's God's appointment for you, God's intervention for you, to give you something. Are you called to do what you're doing? Are you called to be where you're serving? I'm not asking you to rethink and reassociate and to redo everything and say, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't be a chaplain, or maybe I shouldn't be here. There are ways that you can tell, and I don't have enough time to go into all of that, but we can get together and discuss that later. But there's ways to understand, and there's affirmation that God can give, and there's scriptural context, and there's ways that you know, especially, I know you're going to hate to hear this word again, but accountability. An accountability person, whoever that is going to be able to help you make that decision there, or help you see that clearly. God will give you the inclination of where you're supposed to be, and He will call you specifically. Now, does that mean you can question it?
Yes.
Why not?
Yep.
Do I? You better believe it. I work in some areas that I ask God, why am I here? Please. Oh, boy. Sometimes it's a little challenging because of some things that go on. But those are things that we have to do. If you don't have a clear calling to where you're doing, look at that. Look at those key pieces. Look at those factors that you're doing and see where you're at. Check with an accountability person to do that. Is it a big deal to be something that you're not called to do? I'm not pointing fingers. I'm giving you what I've discovered over time. Okay? I'm not saying you're not doing what you're supposed to do. However, it's a big deal. Remember there's this place in the Bible that, and I say that jokingly, but you know, about the millstone around your neck if you mislead people. Don't go there. That's bad. But you want to make sure that you're called to do what you're doing. And you're called to the place. Now, God will answer those, and if you're supposed to be there, He will do incredible things. You will see things that you can't do. You couldn't do. You couldn't reach some of the people. But if you haven't seen some of those for a while, it may not mean that you're in the wrong place. It may just mean that you're tired. You're wore out. You're burned out. Guess what you fail to see when you're burned out, you haven't taken a vacation for a while, or you're physically not there. You don't see some of what God is doing. You miss it. It's there. You're just missing it. Because you are so wiped out. You are so burned out. You are so tired. You just can't see it. You have to pay attention. It's again accountability. Taking a look at those, the healthy habits, being able to see those things. And then you can see some of these callings that are very specific. Don't burn out. Don't burn out. And take a look at that calling and make sure that calling is something that you pray through. Let me give you an example, or a couple of examples. I'm in an area that I have to question once in a while. And I said, okay, I'm frustrated at these aspects of what's going on. Am I still of use here? Am I still doing what you want me to do right here in this place? And I didn't hear an answer. You ever had that? We pray and God doesn't answer? Listen carefully. Gotta listen. Because he might answer. It might be in something else that you're not paying attention to, but you have to be physically and emotionally alert to listen to it. So I walked downstairs, 4 flights of stairs. Walked downstairs and I'm walking up. The receptionist is at the desk and she said, "Do you have a minute?" And I said, "Yeah, I've got a minute." She said, "Can I meet with you up in your office?" I said, "I'm off in about 15 minutes. I said, "Okay." I said, "My wife works on the 2nd floor." I said, "So you get my wife, and my wife and I'll meet you upstairs." "Okay." So I got Lisa. Lisa and I went upstairs. We sat down. Sure enough, about 10, 15 minutes, here she comes. She said, "I've got a bone to pick with you." "Okay." She said, "You're a preacher. Guilty as charged. What do you do with this? God took my brother, and I've got all of these things that I've got to take care of because he was my brother, and I've got this huge amount of things that I have to take care of. Why would God do that to me? Why would he do that to my brother?" She was mad. She was really, really mad, and she needed to vent. And she did. For 30 to 45 minutes, she just lashed out. Something in my mind, there's a video, and I don't have that, and there was a video that came to my mind, and I said, "What?" And got to show this to her. So and I can't remember He's My King, I think is what it's called. And it's really neat. And it goes through and it talks about who God is. I showed her that video, and I said, here's something, that you look at this. She said, "So, Jesus is the answer." "Yeah." "Well, what does that mean?" So I started reading a few things to her. Lisa and I were reading a few things, and she said, "Well, if there's so much peace, then why don't I have it?" I said, "Because you haven't invited Jesus into your heart." She said, "Well, what does that mean?" So I kind of explained to her, and she said, "Well, what do I have to do?" And I said, "Just invite him in. Have him take over, and then follow him." That entire process, we were up there for about 2.5 hours. She accepted Christ. She found a peace, and she wept for about 20 minutes. And she said, "There is a release off of me about my brother's issues. There is a release. I don't know what to do." She said, this feels so good." She quit 3 days later and went to a different job. Never saw her again. Did God answer a prayer? What do you think? Am I supposed to be there?
Yes.
Yeah. As much as I dislike whatever was going on over here, I'm supposed to be there. Clear understanding, as you think. God will answer in a way that you're supposed to get. I have bunches of stories like that, I can tell you. Not that I keep asking God if I'm supposed to be there. That's my first one. Okay, so accountability, number 2. This is the second biggest issue that I found with pastors and chaplains. The first one is a calling. The second one is accountability. Guess how many pastors and chaplains I have discovered who do not have an accountability partner? Woo! Way up there. It's a dangerous place to go because autonomy is good in one way, but if you're the Lone Ranger, you better hope there's a Tonto somewhere around to help you. Because you're doing things on your own. And we can get into dangerous trouble on our own. So I put down there the questions, and these are for you. do not, why not? You must have a reason. It's up to you. It's your decision. If yes, what is their name? What is their phone number? How do they hold you accountable? Are those important? Yeah, they are. That accountability person has to be someone that you trust, that you're in communication with all the time. You should have their phone number. You should be able to call them morning, noon, and night. They should be someone that you can contact whenever you're in trouble. Guess what? Most people aren't in trouble at the best parts of the day. Usually late night, or morning, weekends, something else like that. Now, does that mean, as pastors do sometimes, to give your phone number out to everybody? Well, that may not be a good idea. But at least one accountability partner. Someone who you're accountable to and you have a mutual accountability. Now, it can be your spouse. It can be the friend that they know you better than anybody else. However, there's something about a spiritual accountability partner, male to male, female to female. I know that may not go well with today's terminology stuff. However, you should do that carefully. And you should also choose carefully. Choose wisely. They should be someone who is of great value to God. They should be someone who is of great value to you. They should be someone who is going to give you exactly what you should hear. Not what you want to hear, but what you should hear. They should be able to give you the feedback with all honesty. They should be able to do those things in the best way possible. And that accountability will keep you on track, will also keep you healthy, and it'll also take you to say, hey, you know what? You need a vacation. You need some full light spectrum. You're kind of cranky. Okay? I don't know about you, but when it's late, and I'm hungry, and it's at night, my kids tell me, Dad, you need to eat. Go to bed. I know that may sound odd. I know none of you are in that boat. I know. Accountability is important. Okay, location. I put this down there because there's a lot of different locations that, and this kind of flows through with the accountability and the calling. Where are you called to be? What are you looking at? Are you searching for a place where God is calling you? There's a difference. If God is calling you someplace, He will really put it on your heart. He will really tell you what you need to focus on, where this place is, where that location should be, what facility you might be into, where you need to touch base with. Dwayne and Jolene, they're called to be ministries of, under a bridge and out in the public and in different areas. They have just an incredible ministry to help people and to focus on them in an area that I'm not called to be. I don't have that gift and talent to do that, but they do. And that's where they're called to be, and they understand that. So the location is really important on asking God, is this where I'm supposed to be? How do you know? Did God give you a confirmation on that? Did he affirm you in some way to say, I would like you to be over here, sometimes listening to what God is telling us to do and where we're supposed to go, or who we're supposed to talk to. If we're going to visit with a resident and they have somebody else, they have a roommate that's over there, what if that person is supposed to be the person that you're supposed to be talking to through the other person? What if the nurse coming in is supposed to be the person that you're supposed to talk to? What if the reception lady? What if the doctor coming in? What if the custodian? There was a custodian at a facility I was at, and he came in and he said, I see you in here all the time. What are you doing? And I said, well, I kind of do chaplain work. And he goes, what's a crossbow? He had no idea. I thought, hey, let's have a conversation. part of our Bible study group for years. He and his wife and his entire family, I had the honor and privilege to baptize his entire family. It was amazing. It was incredible. Unfortunately, he and his wife had some big troubles, and they got a divorce, and it was a mess. It was a mess. Things went really bad. He had such a hard time with not only what was going on, but he felt like God had deserted him because he had given his life, and he had all this. So he moved, and he moved to the Midwest. I was back in the Midwest a couple of years ago, and coming back through, and I stopped to visit him. And he said, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine. She's going through a hard time. Can you talk to her? Sure, I can talk to her. So we talked for a while. He said, well, here's the circumstances of what's going on. And so I talked with her, and she was having a hard time trying to get some church. And the counseling she was getting at the church, oh boy. I told her to go someplace else. I try not to step on pastors' toes when they're counseling someone, but this was bad. This was really bad. It was bad advice. So I said, if you can, go someplace else, because you should get a second opinion. So she went someplace else. She talked for a while. The next year, while I was back there, I met with them again while I was back in the Midwest. Talked with them. Things were kind of coming through. She's kind of getting her life back together. He's getting his life back together. And they maintained friendship. Fast forward several months, and she's asked me, she said, I think I've found a church, and I have accepted Christ. And I said, that is the most encouraging news I've heard. That is amazing. A couple months later, she's going through a lot of difficult times. She says, I've accepted Christ, but I have all these problems in front of me, so I had to walk through a lot of things with her. And I was preaching up way up north, and there was a church that was going through a pastoral change, and I was preaching up there. And on Saturday night, she said, I figured it out. God is real. I get this. She said, I understand now. She said, I understand so much that I went down to the church and I was baptized last night. I said, wow, that's incredible. That whole relationship came because there was a custodian at a facility who asked me about the cross. God does things in a way that we don't know what the end results are going to be, but if you're called to be what you're going to do, God will do miraculous things through other people. And He will intertwine all of those things all the way through, that what we do, we may not see. The only reason I knew anything about that is because they were calling me and they were asking me, to help them. And unfortunately, there were some pastoral issues in there and some other things. But through the things that I'm going through, if I hadn't taken the time to answer her questions, to answer his questions, to bring somebody around and to be bold enough to say, Lord, this is my cross, and this is why I have it, this is what the cross means. This is why I'm here. We understand the location, the calling. What we do is really important. It may not be something that we see all the time, but it's really important in the kingdom work. This work field is huge, and workers are still not there. But if we're called to work, if we're called into that, we're called to that location, those answers will come. So those locations are really important. So are you still called to be at the location? God is okay with questions. Lord, am I supposed to be here? Am I supposed to do this? confirmation that this is what I'm supposed to do. God's okay with that. God's okay with questions. He's also wanting you to listen. Going back to the beginning, if you're not healthy, if you're not spiritually healthy, if you're not grounded in the work, if you're not in a body, a fellowship, if you're not in the Bible, if you're not in and studying Scripture, you're going to miss a lot of things. You're going to miss some things. And you may not hear those answers. They work hand in hand. It's just, I'm not trying to beat you up. I'm just trying to tell you, yeah, this is what's going to happen. So those are some things that are going to be. I have a book that I've compiled. Like I said, we meet a lot, we meet with a lot of folks, and we use a lot of collaboration between us. And I've used a lot of the materials that we have that are available from Nursing Home Ministries, from Dean Cook, from Christian Concourse, from all of these. I went down, there was a security guard one time, and he was working as a security guard, but he had a master's in education. He was a really sharp educator. And I asked him, so what's the deal? Why are you on a security guard when you've got a master's in education? He said, well, I just haven't found the right gig. Just haven't figured out. Okay. All right. So, that's up there. We had several conversations. I got to know him over the course of time. And I told him, I said, I would question him about different things and different educational things, because I was homeschooling my kids at the time, and so I'd ask him a lot of questions. Very knowledgeable guy. And I thought, this was interesting, that he's got this. And so I started working in my brain, and God said, ask him to put these things together. The things that we were trying to compile, and I didn't have time to put these things together, and to try to put them together. I said, take these to him. This is God telling me, take these things to him and see if he can compile them. Okay. Well, so I kind of had an idea what I wanted to do. I took all the material that we had, and most of it you see on the back table there, on the side of here for Nursing Home Ministries. A couple of them I didn't get in there. But I took all these down and I said, can you compile these in this fashion? I gave him an outline of what needed to be done and what I'd like to do. And I said, here's the key elements that I want to put into here. Here's the relational things, and here's the teaching aspects that I need to present for all of our presentations that we do. Can you do this? He looked through me and said, yeah, I'll give it a shot. About a week later, he came back and he said, here's a rough draft. Is this looking good? I said, yeah, it looks great. A week later, he came back and he said, I've got a rough draft for you. You want to see it? Yeah, I'd like to see it. So he showed it to me, and I said, oh, this looks great. In the third week, he put all this stuff together, and he had it done. He said, that's pretty much complete. This needs to be proofread. Okay. So I took a look at it, and it's what I have in the back of the book now, and I'm not putting it out. It needs to be proofread still. And I need to get all the okays from everything in order to do that. But it's a good training piece that we have kind of worked with, and I've had some pastors and chaplains go through and look at it and say, this is really good. It's a good compiling of what needed to be said. This security guard came up to me and he said, okay, I put all this together, and I need you to tell me about Jesus. He said he had grown up in a church environment, moved away from it because, guess what? Hypocrisy. We hear that all the time. He had no idea. He said, because of the chaplains that I've seen come through who have lived out in front of him what that means, and the chaplains meetings that we had, and those chaplains and pastors who have come through and have been a part of the facility there, he saw them, he saw how they were, and they were so encouraging to him. He wants to be a part of God's kingdom. That's what God did. That's what God can do for us in all of this aspect. So that's one thing. Do we have all of the pieces that we need? Are we called to be as a location important? Yes. That is the vision and the mission. If you look at number 4, the vision and the mission. Do you have a vision for serving the people, God's sheep? Do you have a vision and a mission? So, there's a debate on which one, vision and mission and how you do that and those things. I'm not giving you any mission statements or vision as of how you're doing that. But if you have something that God has given you to do, if you have a direction that God has given you to follow, if He's called you to be a pastor or a chaplain or a ministry, whatever you want to call that, if you're called by God to be directed into a particular location, listen and follow. And it's amazing what He will do, the doors He will open, the people He will use, the doctors, the nurses, the people, the roommates of somebody, the staff. There is an incredible amount of people that we reach. And if you listen to what God is telling you, the vision that He has, He'll enable you to not only see that, He'll enable you to see what's past that. And it gives us encouragement. It not only gives us direction, but it gives us encouragement. Here's what God wants to do with you. I have had, and believe it or not, I've actually had this vision for a long time that I could come and speak to chaplains here in Portland. And here it is. I love doing this. I love encouraging and teaching. My gifts are preaching and teaching. I love preaching and I love teaching. I may not be the best. I may not be the best at it, but I love it. I love to do it. And I love to encourage. With the vision of what God gives us, we can see what that calling is, where the location is, and how we put these things together to do what we have. Resources, the final piece here. Not the final what I have to give you. I actually have more, but I will curtail myself to a point. How are we doing on time?
Got about half an hour.
Half an hour? Okay, good. I'm hungry. Time for more coffee. But no one needs coffee in the oven. I don't need anything else. So the resources I have made available, and of course I do not have in Spokane, but I have made available the library that I have. I inherited 3 different libraries, pastors that were just incredible. They were awesome. They were so encouraging to me, and they gave me a lot of information. They also gave me their libraries at some point. So I make that available to all the chaplains that are up in the Spokane area. I also make it available if you're up in Spokane. You're more than welcome at any time. Call me. I will meet you at the office, and I will share whatever I have. It's a little bit of travel, just across the street. But I've made that available to a lot of pastors locally in chaplains. I've worked with pastors that are struggling. They don't have whatever degree. And it's not that the degree makes a pastor. It's the calling and the drive what God has done with these folks to make them who they are, much like us. But I've offered that up to them. My accountability partner, Jim, he's an educator as well as a counselor. He's very useful and helpful. Both of us love to teach. Both of us are always trying to work with, collaborating with others to try to get the best information that we possibly can, the latest information, or whatever's there. I have pastors that come over and we meet and they study with some of these. I have chaplains who come up and they borrow the material. You can see what I have back there. I've got a lot of pastors and chaplains who utilize the materials we have there. The Rose books are they're just great. And I'm not putting particularly a plug in for them, but they've just done a really good job of taking a great amount of resources and making them with your book. You can go to the website too and get those. They just have a tremendous amount of information. And they make it available, it says right on it, as long as you don't make it, I think it's like 100, 200, 300, 400, however many copies, or republish it. But you're able to make as many copies as you want, it says right on the bottom. Those are very useful because there's a lot of people that I get that come in and they want to know, what do I tell? I've got a resident over here who's asking about what's the difference between this denomination and that denomination, or how do I describe the gifts of the Holy Spirit? What are the fruits of the Spirit? All of these particular questions, and there's a kind of a layout. It doesn't give you all the answers, but at least it gives you a guideline. It gives you something that you can go and look at. I got a handbook of denominations back there, very important, to kind of understand some of the denominational structure that's going on. Is it a big deal? Maybe, maybe not. I have a lot of people who come up and they say, I want to know where a Baptist church is, because I want to go to a Baptist church. I don't want to hear you. Doesn't matter to me. If they want to go to a Baptist church, that's fine. I'll find them a Baptist church. I will find a church for the folks who are there that want to go and are able to get out and go someplace. If they want to go to a Mormon church, if they want to go to a Pentecostal church, if they want to go to... Now, I kind of draw the line at the Church of the Wicked. Church of the Wicked.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, while I was pastoring down in Oregon, I met a lady one time. We were in the mall. She said, you're that preacher from the church over there on, I don't know what street it was on, one of the streets that came down. She named her name on the sidewalk. I said, yeah. She said, don't like you. Okay. What are you supposed to do with that, right? She said, you don't know who I am. And I said, no, I don't know who you are, but I can kind of tell what you are.
Exactly.
She said, what do you think I am? And I said, well, I think you practice witchcraft. And she goes, well, you're good. She said, I'm a Wiccan in the church of blah, 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 blah. No idea what she said. Anyway, down in Roseburg. So now, what is your congregation size? Any guess? 1,000. No way. Guess what they were doing? Praying. They were praying for the demise of pastors.
Oh, no.
I was amazed.
Wow.
I was truly amazed. So would I send someone to a church of Wicked? No.
No.
First of all, I don't know where one is. So that's not the Spokane area. There are some up there, but I'm not going to get that. But yeah, we need to be aware that the enemy is busy. And the enemy is busy doing things that will take away our health, take away our vision, deceive us in our calling. Is it important to know what your calling is? Yeah. Is it important to know what your belief in God is? Yes, it is. Because if the enemy can steal it away, guess what? Depression will soon set in. The enemy is there to take away your joy and everyone else's joy, which is why we're calling you what it is, which is why we are in a battle. It is a strong battle. That is why I'm focused on health for you and for me, because we are in a serious battle. I find it interesting that Jesus gives the disciples the authority to what? Heal the sick, cast out demons. What do you find Jesus doing the most of after the Sermon on the Mount? Casting out demons. Where did they go? Rhetorical question. Think they're still around?
Oh, yeah.
You better believe it. You hear about people casting out demons? Not that you should go cast out demons. Don't go there. God has specifically called you to do that. Don't go there. However, my point is, they're here. And they will try to kick your legs out from underneath you at every single moment. How does the enemy do that? Well, the enemy's tricky. Were you really called? Is this really where you're supposed to be? Did God really say do not eat that fruit? See where I'm going? Don't let the enemy kick you in the legs, knock your feet off underneath you. We got to maintain this health. Accountability is important. Calling is important. Health. Our health is important. If we're not spiritually healthy, if we're not physically healthy, we can't teach someone or bring good news to someone if we're cranky or we're grumpy or we have a bad attitude. There's a guy down the street on 224. Wait, no, that was his point. Never mind. We have to be careful. We have to be healthy. And we have to remember our calling. And we have to stand firm. We have to remember the word and stand firm on that. If there is a church of witchcraft with 1,000 people, this was back in the 90s, who are praying against us, we need to pay attention. We need to be careful. Take your vacations, get your physicals, pay attention to what you're doing, get an accountability partner, try to review that. Encouraging pieces. Once again, the information that I have back here, those are my references, and you can look on the back to see how to get some of those reference materials. I found these to be some of the most handy and some of the most borrowed books that I have in my library. And those, we can talk about those and do that. One of the items that I wanted to talk about was recording stories. We doing okay on time?
We are.
Okay. Recording stories. Is it something we can do? Well, I have a story of a guy. There were three, I think at the time, there were three people left from the original French underground. Assuming you know what the French underground was. They took a lot of the information for World War II. So, one of the guys from this lived in a facility where I was at. He had incredible stories of where he was going. Well, his daughter came in one time and she said, "What kind of stories has he told you?" And I said, "You know, your dad has all kinds of stories that are great, and how he worked. He was a barber, a French. He's gone to glory, but he had all these really good stories of the barber and the things that he did, and some of the messages that he had." And I said, "My favorite story is the underwear story." And his daughter looked at me and she said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "The underwear story. Where he had to get away from everybody. It was his underwear." He said, "I've never heard that story." And I said, "Well, here's the story. They were bivouac in this area. He was a sound sleeper. He's sound asleep. And the enemy was coming in, and he heard shots. He woke him up, and he looked over, and there were 2 people in a tent, and the guy was gone. And they were coming through shooting the tents. And he looked over in the other tents, nobody else was there. He had slept through whatever had told him to get out, or whoever told him to get out. And he's there by himself. And he said, I didn't know what to do. He said these guys were coming through and they were shooting the tents as they went through, and his tent was not too far away. So he said, I did the only thing that I knew how to do, run. So he ran, he knew there was a little ravine down there, and he ran all the way down. They were shooting at him all the way. He dove in the water and started swimming down. He said he remembers distinctly seeing bullets fly past him, but he was swimming downstream and swam underwater for as long as he possibly could, came up for air, and then went fire. So the bullets stopped after a while. He got down, he looked out, he saw that there was nothing out there, and got out, started up a bank. He saw a farmhouse that was up there, and he doesn't know how far he traveled. He gets out, he goes up to the farmhouse, and there's somebody out there, and he recognizes the person from in town where they had been a couple days before. And he went up, and they gave him safe haven. Now, this guy was French. So he's telling me this story. And when he got to the point where he is at the fence with the folks, he went on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And then he looked at me and he said, "You're not following me." And I said, "No, you're speaking French." I don't understand French. I never did get to hear the rest of that story because he never did repeat it. However, his daughter said, "I'd never heard that story." I said, what you need to do is you need to get a camera and you need to ask him that story because she had never heard it. Now, he passed away probably about 3 years later. He was the last surviving person. He was 98 years old. He was the last surviving person in the French underground. That story disappeared with him. Those stories disappeared with him. Nobody else had any idea about that French underground. Those are extremely important stories to be able to recoup and to get those things. When people are asking you, what is one thing you would tell me to do for my elderly folks? Get the stories. Record them. Video, audio, however you want to do that. I've talked with a lot of people. They said they're not sure that they would be able to talk with the camera. I said, well, there's so many different types of cameras now. You know, there's so many different recording devices. We're recording probably 100 times a day and don't even realize it. So set the camera up and just start the conversation. I said, if they're your parent or your sibling or whatever that is, whatever that relationship is, ask for permission later. I know that's not a good pastoral type to go. However, get that recording. I mean, if they're kinfolk, get this recording, get that story. Get that story. They're being lost, especially veterans. Man, some of the veteran stories. There is a gentleman. I get the privilege of working with some folks that this man is 102. He was a Navy diver. Oh, he had, that giant fishbowl thing on his head and a big thing with airlines coming in and somebody with a pump going on. It's surprising that he survived all that. But it's amazing, some of his stories. This guy's 102, and I asked him, I said, so what was it like being stationed in some of these areas that we're at? And he said, when I was first in, he went to Farragut State, to the Farragut Naval Station, which is a whole story in itself. If you ever get a chance to see that, Farragut Idaho, that's pretty incredible. But he remembered the people he was stationed with and what they did after. they retired, or after they got out, and their spouse's names. He's 102. I can't remember what I ate for breakfast. He's 102 and he remembers, all this. And so I've talked with his son, and he said, well, I've never heard some of these stories. Record them. You got to get them down. Get those things. Sometimes that interaction, one of those interactions, there's a guy who would come, his wife was actually coming to a service. He was a veteran, and they went to a Mormon church. And she would come. He was Mormon. She was attending with him. I'm not sure how that works. But she would come to the church service. So I had my office, because the chapel was up on the 4th floor, and my office is just off to the left. And I had a group of individuals come in, and they said, we need to talk to you. This guy's wife is coming to your service. Okay. What am I supposed to do with him? He's Mormon. Okay. What am I supposed to do with that? What is your point? He said, well, we have a very specific rule that the money only travels and only is offered to them. So if I was to take an offering, I shouldn't do that. I should bypass her. He said, yeah, you can't take her money. I said, well, how about this? How about if I don't take an offering at all? Which I don't, obviously, because that's part of the rules. I said, I don't take an offering. So what's your point? I said, well, you're not Mormon. Hey, you got something there. Still, what's your point? He said, well, she can't listen to another, are you preaching from the gospel? I said, yeah, I'm preaching from the gospel. I'm just not using any additional pieces to the gospel.
Right.
So he said, well, we have a problem with not only, since you're not taking money from her, that will allow you that one, but what do we do about your preaching? And I said, let's do this. You come attend the service and tell me what you think. They didn't like that. And then they didn't like the fact that I said, hey, let me pray for you. Out the door they went. I tell you all that our own health, to be able to understand where people are coming from and the diversity that we have and we live with. Our calling is important. Our health is important. Not to take offense of things that we do. That's also part of our health.
Yeah.
Being able to have, to be as wise as a serpent, as gentle as a dove. I'm not sure what the wise as a serpent actually looks like, that before or after the garden. So you look at those and we have to be careful with what we're doing. But we also have to be willing to understand what others are doing, where people are at, what their needs are, and how we can incorporate that, which is why we collaborate with a lot of folks going around and try to understand what they're doing. We try to offer everything to everybody, as you well know, in what you're doing. And if we're not healthy, we can't do it. We just can't do it. So I will end with that. I see we're about ready for lunch.
Is that Gatorade?